My sister gave everyone Tiffany necklaces at her wedding except me. I got a DNA test. So I took it, exposed Dad's affair, and saved his dying secret daughter. Now Mom's in prison for 18 years. During my sister Sarah's wedding last year, she gave out all her bridesmaids these gorgeous Tiffany necklaces. Everyone except me got one. I got an Ancestry DNA kit instead. And to make matters worse, during her speech, she stood up there in her $40,000 dress and talked about how I was still finding myself, and that maybe this gift would help me discover who I really was. She said it in a tone like she knew something I didn't. Everyone laughed thinking it was sweet, but I just sat there, mortified because I had a terrible gut feeling. A week later, my dad came back to visit, and his whole demeanor changed when he saw the DNA kit box on my counter. His face went white, and he actually grabbed my shoulders, begging me not to take it. He kept saying some things are better left unknown. I felt bad, but I told him I'd already sent it in, because honestly I was curious. He literally staggered back and whispered, "God help us all." 2 months later, my whole world exploded. I got an email about a half-sister match. This woman Claire reached out immediately, and I could feel the desperation in her message. She had stage 4 kidney disease, and her mom wasn't a match, so she'd turned to DNA testing as a last resort to find more family. My heart broke for her, and as we talked more, I discovered she was 30, which meant she was born 2 years before me. That made me sick because it meant Dad had an affair. When I confronted Dad, he literally crumbled in front of me and said he knew this day would come eventually. Before I could even figure out what to do with this information, he ran straight to Mom and told her everything. Her reaction made my skin crawl though, because she wasn't nearly shocked enough. Then Sarah showed up because of course Mom called her immediately. She went straight for my throat, accusing me of trying to destroy our family with my attention-seeking behavior. When I tried to explain that Claire was literally dying and needed help, Mom said that wasn't our problem. 3 weeks later at our monthly family dinner, I noticed something sparkling on Sarah's neck, and my heart just stopped. She was wearing my grandma's pearl necklace, the one my grandma promised me before she died. I was supposed to get it on my 30th birthday, which was only 2 months away. When I asked about it, Sarah actually smirked and said Mom gave it to her as a pregnancy gift since she was the only one carrying on the family legacy. Mom jumped in saying I was too busy digging up the past to appreciate family treasures. Despite my family treating me like garbage, I met Claire and her mom, Patricia, secretly. I'm apparently incapable of not helping people even when my own family acts like I'm dead to them. The second I met Claire, I offered to get tested as a potential donor because how could I not when someone's life was at stake? That's when Patricia dropped the bomb, showing me old letters and bank records proving Mom knew about everything from the beginning. She'd threatened Patricia and paid her to leave town, all while staying with Dad. She wrote to Patricia about how she made her hate her own firstborn because she looked exactly like her father. Everything suddenly made sense why Mom always favored Sarah, why nothing I did was ever good enough, why I was always a disappointment. I got tested immediately and spent the next week checking my phone obsessively for results. When the call came that I was a perfect match for Claire, she sobbed with relief and I immediately agreed to donate. Surgery was scheduled for the week after Thanksgiving, and I stupidly thought I could share this as good news at dinner. The second I mentioned Claire's name and that I was donating a kidney, Mom went completely rigid. Sarah exploded screaming about me giving an organ to some random stranger, and I calmly explained, no, she's our half-sister. She's Dad's daughter. The room erupted as the extended family started connecting dots. Mom tried desperately to shut it down, but the truth was spilling out everywhere. Dad finally admitted to the affair in front of everyone. Sarah's perfect world shattered in real time, and she started shrieking that I'd destroyed everything. Her husband looked absolutely disgusted and just walked out without a word. Then Mom turned to me with more hatred than I've ever seen and said, "This is why I never loved you like Sarah. You're just like your father. You destroy everything you touch." Even after that nightmare, I went to the hospital because Claire needed me. I might be a doormat, but I keep my promises. They were wheeling me into surgery, and I actually felt good about doing something that mattered, when suddenly a nurse rushed in with panic all over her face, saying there was a huge problem. There's been a complication with the blood work. The surgery has to be postponed. My stomach dropped as she wheeled me back to the prep room. Claire was already there, tears streaming down her face while Patricia held her hand. The doctor walked in carrying a clipboard, his expression grim. "I need to explain something unusual we found in your blood work," he said, pulling up chairs for all of us. "Both of you carry a rare genetic marker that affects blood clotting. It's called factor V Leiden mutation, but you both have an extremely rare variant. The risk of complications during surgery is too high." Claire's shoulders shook as she buried her face in her hands. Patricia rubbed her back while I sat there feeling completely useless. The doctor continued explaining how this genetic condition made the transplant impossible between us. My perfect match status meant nothing if the surgery would cull us both. "Is there any other option?" Patricia asked desperately. The doctor hesitated. "We'd need to find another family member who's both a match and doesn't carry this mutation. The chances are slim, but it's possible." That's when it hit me. Sarah, my sister who got everything, who Mom loved more, who was carrying on the family legacy. She might be Claire's only hope. I drove straight to Sarah's house, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. Her car was in the driveway, but Kyle's wasn't, which was a relief. I knocked and waited, hearing her footsteps approach slowly. She opened the door just a crack. "What do you want?" "Sarah, I need to talk to you. It's literally life or death." She rolled her eyes but let me in. The house felt different. Boxes stacked in corners, family photos missing from walls. She led me to the kitchen where she was sorting papers. "Kyle left," she said flatly, "thanks to your little announcement at Thanksgiving." I explained about the genetic condition, how Claire needed someone else to get tested. Sarah listened while organizing bills into piles, her face completely blank. "So let me get this straight," she finally said. "You want me to get tested to maybe donate a kidney to Dad's bastard child? She's dying, Sarah. She's our sister whether we like it or not." Sarah slammed her hand on the counter. "She's not my anything. You destroyed my marriage, humiliated our family, and now you want me to give up an organ?" I stayed calm even though my insides were churning. "Just get tested. That's all I'm asking. You don't have to decide about donating unless you're a match." She stared at me for a long moment. "I'll think about it." That night, Mom called screaming so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. Sarah had told her about my visit. Mom went on about how I was manipulating everyone, trying to guilt Sarah into helping strangers who meant nothing to us. "She's Dad's daughter," I said quietly. "That makes her family." "Family?" Mom laughed bitterly. "You want to talk about family after what you did? You're no daughter of mine." The line went dead. I sat there staring at my phone, feeling more alone than ever, but I couldn't give up. Claire was counting on me to find another way. 3 days passed with no word from Sarah. I spent them at the hospital with Claire, watching her struggle through dialysis. Patricia never left her side, dark circles under her eyes from sleeping in hospital chairs. On the 4th day, Sarah texted, "Fine, I'll get tested, but I have conditions." We met at a coffee shop downtown. Sarah looked exhausted, her usually perfect hair pulled back in a messy bun. She slid into the booth across from me. "Here's the deal," she said without preamble. "I'll get tested interested. If I'm a match, I'll consider donating. But you have to do something for me first. Anything, I said immediately. She pulled out her phone and showed me a screenshot. It was a social media post from Kyle with a photo of him and some woman. I want you to find out everything about her. Who she is, how long they've been together, everything. Sarah, I don't think, that's my price. Take it or leave it. I agreed because what choice did I have? Sarah made an appointment for testing the next day. I went with her, sitting in the waiting room while she got her blood drawn. She didn't speak to me the entire time. While waiting for Sarah's results, I did what she asked. The woman in Kyle's photo was named Jessica, a single mom he'd met at the same grief counseling group where he'd met Sarah. My stomach turned as I recognized the pattern. I found more photos of them together dating back months before he'd even left Sarah. Mom started her campaign to ruin me the day after Sarah got tested. First, she called my work claiming I was mentally unstable and shouldn't be trusted with responsibilities. My boss pulled me aside asking if everything was okay at home. Then she showed up at my apartment building telling neighbors I was involved with dangerous people, that they should be careful around me. My landlord knocked on my door that evening. Your mother was here earlier. She said some concerning things. I don't want any trouble. I assured him there wouldn't be any, but I could see the doubt in his eyes. Mom was systematically trying to destroy my life, and she was just getting started. Sarah's test results came back positive. She was a match and didn't carry the genetic mutation. When the doctor called with the news, I felt a mix of relief and dread. Now came the hard part. I met Sarah at her house with everything I'd found about Jessica. She went through the photos and messages, her face growing paler with each one. He was cheating the whole time, she whispered, even before we got married. I'm sorry, Sarah. I know this hurts. She looked up at me with tears in her eyes. You know what the worst part is? Mom knew. She had to. She always knows everything. But she pushed me to marry him anyway because he had money and status. We sat in silence for a moment before she spoke again. I'll do it. I'll donate the kidney. Really? But I have one condition, she said, and my heart sank. I want you to promise me something. When this is over, when Claire is okay, I want you to help me understand why Mom hates you so much. The real reason. Because I'm starting to think there's more to this story than any of us know. I agreed immediately. Sarah scheduled her pre-surgery appointments while I updated Claire and Patricia. For the first time in weeks, Claire smiled genuinely. Mom's attacks escalated when she found out Sarah was getting tested. She called Sarah constantly, showing up at her house uninvited, leaving voicemails about family loyalty and betrayal. Sarah stopped answering. One afternoon, I came home to find my apartment door slightly open. Inside, things were moved around subtly. Nothing stolen, just displaced. A message that she could get to me whenever she wanted. I installed new locks and a security camera that night. The harassment continued. Mom told my extended family I was forcing Sarah to donate a kidney, that I was manipulating everyone for attention. She convinced my aunt to call me saying I should be ashamed of myself. My cousin texted asking if I'd lost my mind, but Sarah surprised me. She stood firm despite the pressure. When Mom confronted her in person, Sarah actually defended me for the first time in our lives. She's trying to save someone's life, Sarah told her. Maybe you should try it sometime instead of destroying everyone around you. Mom's face turned purple with rage. Don't you dare speak to me that way. I've given you everything. You gave me lies, Sarah shot back. Just like you've been lying to all of us for years. The surgery was scheduled for the following month. Sarah and Claire met for the first time at the hospital during pre-op appointments. It was awkward at first, but Claire's genuine gratitude seemed to soften something in Sarah. Thank you, Claire said simply. I know this isn't easy for you. Sarah nodded stiffly. Just take care of it, okay? It's the only spare I've got. As the surgery date approached, Mom made one last desperate attempt. She showed up at the hospital during one of Sarah's appointments, causing a scene in the waiting room. You're making a terrible mistake, she shouted. That woman and her daughter are nothing but gold diggers trying to get their hands on our family's money. Security had to escort her out while everyone stared. Sarah was mortified, but it seemed to strengthen her resolve. The night before surgery, Sarah called me. I've been thinking about what you said, about Claire being family. I guess I never thought about how you must have felt all these years, being treated like you didn't belong. It was the closest thing to an apology I'd ever gotten from her. Thank you for doing this, Sarah. I know it's not easy. Yeah, well, maybe it's time one of us did the right thing for once. The morning of surgery arrived. Sarah and Claire were prepped in adjoining rooms. Patricia and I waited together, both of us nervous wrecks. Even Dad showed up, looking haggard and old. I'm proud of you girls, he said quietly. Both Sarah and you're better than I ever was. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just nodded. The waiting was excruciating. Hours passed like days. Finally, the surgeon emerged with a smile. Everything went perfectly. Both patients are doing well. The kidney is already producing urine, which is an excellent sign. Patricia burst into tears of relief. I felt my own eyes burning as the weight of months of stress finally started to lift. We were allowed to see them once they were moved to recovery. Claire looked peaceful despite the tubes and monitors. Sarah was still groggy but managed a weak thumbs up when she saw me. For the first time in my life, I felt like we might actually be sisters. The recovery room was quiet except for the steady beep of monitors. I sat between Sarah and Claire's beds, watching them both sleep peacefully. Patricia had gone to get coffee, leaving me alone with my thoughts. That's when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You think you've won something? This isn't over. My blood ran cold. The message had to be from Mom. I deleted it and tried to focus on the positive. Both surgeries had gone perfectly. Claire would live. Sarah had done something selfless. Maybe we could actually heal as a family. How wrong I was. The next morning, Sarah woke up properly and immediately asked for her phone. I handed it to her, watching her face change as she scrolled through dozens of messages. Her expression went from confused to horrified to furious in seconds. What is this? She showed me her screen. Screenshots of bank statements, legal documents, all sent from Mom's number. She's saying if I don't convince Claire to sign papers renouncing any claim to Dad's estate, she'll make sure I lose everything in my divorce. I grabbed the phone, reading through the threats. Mom had hired a private investigator to dig up dirt on Sarah during her marriage to Kyle. Things that could affect custody of the baby she was carrying. Things that could destroy her in divorce court. She wouldn't actually do this, Sarah whispered, but we both knew she would. Claire stirred in the next bed, still weak but alert. She'd heard everything. I don't want any money, she said softly. I just wanted to find my family. That's not the point, Sarah snapped, then caught herself. Sorry, I can't believe Mom would go this far. Patricia returned with coffee, immediately sensing the tension. When we explained what was happening, her face hardened. That woman never changes. 30 years ago, she did the same thing to me. Threats, manipulation, anything to protect her perfect life. Over the next few days, Mom's campaign intensified. She couldn't attack me at the hospital directly, but she found other ways. My boss called saying there had been concerns raised about my mental stability, and maybe I should take some time off. My landlord left a notice that my lease wouldn't be renewed due to complaints from other tenants. Sarah was getting it worse. Mom had contacted Kyle, of all people, feeding him information to use against Sarah in their divorce. Suddenly Kyle was claiming Sarah had hidden assets, had been unfaithful first, was unstable and unfit to be a mother. All lies, but lies backed up with twisted half-truths Mom provided. "I can't fight this," Sarah said during one of my visits. She looked exhausted, still recovering from surgery while dealing with Mom's attacks. "She knows too much, has too much leverage." Claire watched from her bed, guilt written across her face. "This is my fault. If I hadn't reached out—" "No," I interrupted. "This is Mom's fault. It's always been her fault." That night, I made a decision. If Mom wanted to play dirty, I'd have to get my hands dirty too. I called Patricia and asked to meet privately. She agreed, suggesting a small diner near the hospital. "I need to know everything," I told her over coffee. Everything about Mom's threats 30 years ago. What she did, what she said, all of it. Patricia studied me carefully. "Why now?" "Because she's destroying Sarah's life to punish us for helping Claire, and I'm done being her victim." Patricia pulled out an old folder she'd brought. Inside were letters, photos, even a cassette tape. "Your mother was very thorough in her threats, but she made one mistake. She put too much in writing." I spent hours going through everything. Mom's letters to Patricia were vicious, threatening not just legal action but physical harm if she didn't disappear. There were photos of Patricia's apartment after it had been vandalized, her car with slashed tires, and the tape, Mom's voice, younger but unmistakable, describing exactly what she'd do if Patricia ever contacted Dad again. "She said she'd make sure I never worked in this state again," Patricia explained. "Said she had connections everywhere. And when I was 3 months pregnant, someone ran me off the road. No proof it was connected, but the message was clear." My hands shook with anger. This wasn't just about protecting her marriage. This was about control, about destroying anyone who threatened her perfect image. "Can I copy these?" I asked. Patricia nodded. "I've kept them all these years hoping someday they'd matter. Maybe now they will." Back at the hospital, Sarah's situation was deteriorating rapidly. Kyle had filed emergency motions claiming she was hiding money, that her family was involved in fraud. His lawyer was suddenly very aggressive, very well informed. Mom's handiwork was obvious. "He wants the house, full custody when the baby's born, and alimony," Sarah told me, tears running down her face. "My lawyer says his claims are ridiculous, but we'll have to spend months fighting them. Money I don't have." Claire was well enough to be discharged but refused to leave. "I'm not abandoning you both after what you've done for me," she insisted. Patricia got her a room at a nearby hotel, and they both visited daily. That's when things got truly nasty. Mom showed up at the hospital with Dad and 2 lawyers. She marched into Sarah's room like she owned the place, ignoring the nurse who tried to stop her. "Enough of this nonsense," she announced. "I've had papers drawn up. Claire signs away any claim to inheritance, agrees to no further contact with our family, and this all goes away." "Get out," Sarah said weakly. Mom's face twisted. "Don't be stupid, Sarah. You're already losing everything to Kyle. You want to lose your family too?" "We're not signing anything," I said, standing between Mom and the beds. She turned her venom on me. This is all your fault. You couldn't leave well enough alone, could you? Had to dig up the past, destroy our family. You destroyed our family," I shot back. "With your lies, your threats, your hatred." Dad stood behind her, silent as always, but something in his expression had changed. He looked tired, defeated, but also resolved. "Margaret," he said quietly. It was the first time I'd heard him use her full name. "That's enough." She spun on him. "Don't you dare." I said enough. His voice cracked like a whip. Everyone froze. "I've let you run this family into the ground for 30 years. I've watched you poison our daughters against each other. No more." Mom's face went white, then red. "How dare you? I'm done," Dad continued. "Done with the lies, done with the manipulation. These are my daughters, all 3 of them. And if you can't accept that, then we have bigger problems than inheritance." The lawyers looked uncomfortable. Mom sputtered, trying to regain control, but Dad wasn't finished. "I've already had my will updated," he announced. "Equal shares to all 3 girls. And if you try to contest it, Margaret, I'll make sure everyone knows exactly why, including your precious country club friends." Mom grabbed the papers from the lawyer and stormed out, Dad following slowly. I'd never seen him stand up to her before. It should have felt like victory, but I knew Mom too well. This would only make things worse. I was right. The next day, my car wouldn't start. The mechanic found sugar in the gas tank. Then my credit card started getting declined. Someone had called claiming they were stolen. My bank account was frozen due to suspicious activity. Mom was using every dirty trick she knew. Sarah wasn't spared either. Her divorce lawyer called saying Kyle had suddenly obtained photos of Sarah from college. Nothing illegal, but embarrassing party pictures that could be twisted to make her look like an unfit mother. Photos only Mom would have had. "She's going to destroy us both," Sarah said during one of my visits. She looked terrible, the stress affecting her recovery. "Maybe we should just give her what she wants." "No," Claire spoke up from the doorway. She was walking now, slowly but steadily. "I've spent my whole life without a father because of that woman. I won't let her take my sisters too." It was the first time she'd called us sisters. Sarah started crying, and even I felt my eyes water. We were a mess, all 3 of us, but we were finally united. Patricia had been busy too. She'd contacted a lawyer, one who specialized in harassment and extortion cases. "What your mother is doing is criminal," the lawyer explained during our meeting. "These threats, the blackmail, the property damage, we can file charges. But we need proof it's her," I pointed out. "Then we get proof," Patricia said firmly. "I've waited 30 years for justice. I'm not waiting anymore." We started documenting everything. Every threat, every incident, every piece of harassment. Sarah's divorce lawyer was brought into the loop and was appalled at Mom's interference. He started filing counter motions, exposing Kyle's sudden windfall of information. But Mom escalated faster than we could respond. One night, someone broke into my apartment while I was at the hospital. Nothing was stolen, but every family photo was destroyed, torn to pieces and scattered on my bed. The message was clear. I was no longer family. The security camera I'd installed caught a glimpse of the intruder. Not Mom herself, but a man I didn't recognize. When I showed the footage to the police, they said without clear identification, there wasn't much they could do. Sarah's house was next. She came home from a doctor's appointment to find her mailbox destroyed, and the word traitor spray painted on her garage door. The neighbors saw a van speeding away but couldn't get plates. "She's hired people," Sarah said, staring at the vandalism. "Mom's actually hired criminals to terrorize us." Claire and Patricia moved from the hotel to Patricia's sister's house an hour away. It was safer, but Claire insisted on still visiting daily. She was getting stronger, the kidney functioning perfectly, but the stress was affecting her recovery too. Then came the escalation none of us expected. I was leaving work. My boss had reluctantly let me return, when a man approached me in the parking garage. He was clean-cut, professional looking, but something in his eyes made me freeze. "Your mother sends a message," he said calmly. "Stop now, or things get worse. Much worse." "Are you threatening me?" I managed to ask. He smiled coldly. "I'm delivering a message. What happens next depends on you." He walked away before I could respond. My hands shook so badly badly I could barely get my phone out to call 911. But what would I say? A man talked to me in a parking garage? Without proof of an actual threat, the police would do nothing. That night, I called a family meeting at Sarah's house. Dad came, looking older than ever. We told him everything. The threats, the vandalism, the man in the parking garage. His face grew paler with each revelation. I didn't know she'd go this far, he said quietly. I thought if I updated the will, she'd back down. You've been married to her for 35 years, Sarah said bitterly. How did you not know what she was capable of? Dad had no answer for that, but he did have information. She's been moving money, he admitted. Large amounts from our joint accounts to ones I can't access. And she's been meeting with someone named Marcus. Says he's a financial advisor, but I've never heard of him before this mess started. Marcus. That had to be the man from the parking garage. Mom wasn't just hiring random thugs. She was working with a professional, someone who knew how to intimidate without leaving evidence. We need to be smarter, Patricia said. She'd been quiet during the meeting, but now her eyes were sharp. Your mother thinks she's the only one who can play dirty. She's wrong. Over the next week, we implemented Patricia's plan. We started varying our routines, never traveling alone. We installed cameras everywhere. Our homes, our cars, even hidden ones we wore. We opened new bank accounts Mom didn't know about, got new phones she couldn't track. Most importantly, we started our own investigation. Patricia's lawyer had connections, including a legitimate private investigator who began looking into this Marcus character. What he found was disturbing. Marcus Webb was a fixer, someone wealthy people hired to solve problems quietly. He had a record, but nothing recent. He was smart, careful, and expensive. The fact that Mom had hired him showed how serious she was about destroying us. But we found something else too. Marcus had a pattern. He'd been connected to several harassment campaigns that had ended badly. One target had a nervous breakdown, another lost custody of their children. But in each case, when the authorities finally got involved, Marcus disappeared and his clients were left holding the bag. He's going to burn her, the investigator explained. When things get too hot, he'll vanish with whatever money she's paid him, and she'll be left to face the consequences alone. It was almost poetic justice. Almost. But we couldn't wait for Mom to self-destruct. The harassment was taking its toll on all of us, especially Sarah in her condition. The breaking point came 2 weeks later. Sarah had a prenatal appointment, and I went with her for safety. We were in the waiting room when she got a call from her neighbor. Someone had broken into her house in broad daylight. We rushed back to find police everywhere. The house had been ransacked, but it wasn't random. Every photo of Sarah and Kyle had been destroyed. Her wedding dress, which she'd been planning to sell, was shredded. And in the nursery she'd started preparing, someone had left a note. No baby deserves a mother like you. Sarah collapsed in the doorway, sobbing. I held her while she shook, feeling my own rage building. This had gone too far. Mom had crossed every line. That's it, I said. We're ending this. That night we put our plan into action. We'd been documenting everything, but now we organized it all. Every threat, every incident, every piece of evidence. Patricia's 30-year-old evidence combined with our current documentation painted a clear picture of a pattern of criminal harassment, but we needed more. We needed Mom to incriminate herself directly, so we set a trap. Claire, brave Claire, who was still recovering from major surgery, volunteered to be bait. She called Mom directly, saying she was ready to sign whatever papers Mom wanted. She just wanted the harassment to stop. Mom took the bait immediately. She arranged a meeting at a neutral location, a private dining room at an upscale restaurant. What she didn't know was that Claire would be wearing a wire, and we'd have cameras positioned to record everything. The day of the meeting, we were all nervous. Claire looked pale but determined. The wire was carefully hidden, the cameras in place. Patricia's lawyer and the private investigator were standing by. Claire went in alone while we waited in a van outside, listening. Mom arrived 15 minutes late, making an entrance as always. Her voice came through the wire crystal clear. Smart girl, Mom said. I knew you'd see reason eventually. I just want this to stop, Claire replied. The threats, the vandalism, all of it. Mom laughed coldly. Threats? I don't know what you're talking about, though I did hear about poor Sarah's house. Such a shame when people make enemies. She was careful, but Claire was patient. She slowly drew Mom out, playing the scared victim perfectly. And finally, Mom's arrogance got the better of her. You think you can just waltz into my family? Mom hissed. I've spent 30 years building this life, protecting my daughters from their father's weakness. I paid your mother to disappear once. I should have made sure she stayed gone permanently. You threatened to hurt her, Claire said quietly. She was pregnant and I did what I had to do, Mom snapped. Just like I'm doing now. Sarah will thank me eventually. Once you're gone and she gets her life back, she'll see I was right. They always do. And if I don't sign? Claire asked. Mom leaned forward, her voice dropping. Then things will get worse. Marcus is very good at his job. Your mother's already had one accident. Accidents happen all the time. That was it. Confession to hiring someone to hurt Patricia 30 years ago, admission to hiring Marcus now, and a direct threat. We had everything we needed. But Claire, brave Claire, pushed one more button. What about your other daughter? The one you hate? Mom's voice turned venomous. She's not my daughter. She never was. Looking at her every day, seeing his face, knowing she was the reason I had to stay with him, I should have gotten rid of her years ago. But now she's finally shown her true colors, and everyone can see what I've always known. She's poison, just like her father. The pain in those words hit me like a physical blow, even though I was prepared for them. Sarah, sitting next to me in the van, grabbed my hand. For the first time in our lives, she was comforting me. Claire stood to leave, but Mom grabbed her wrist. You're not going anywhere until you sign these papers. Let go of me, Claire said calmly. Sign them. Mom's voice was rising. Sign them, or I swear. That's when restaurant security intervened. We'd alerted them beforehand that there might be a disturbance. They separated Mom and Claire walked out safely. Mom followed, furious, only to find police waiting in the parking lot. The look on her face when she saw the police cars was priceless. Shock, then rage, then fear, as she realized what had happened. Margaret Wilson, the lead officer said, you're under arrest for extortion, criminal harassment, and conspiracy to commit assault. This is ridiculous, Mom shrieked. I haven't done anything. This is all lies. But we had the recordings. We had the evidence. We had 30 years of her crimes documented. As they put her in handcuffs, she looked around wildly and spotted me standing by the van. The hatred in her eyes was pure poison. You did this, she snarled. You've destroyed everything, just like I always knew you would. No, Mom, I said quietly. You did this to yourself. As the police car drove away with her, I felt empty. Not satisfied, not vindicated, just empty. Sarah put her arm around me and Claire joined us, the three sisters standing together in a restaurant parking lot, watching our mother get arrested. But it wasn't over. Marcus Webb was still out there, and Mom would make bail soon. We had won a battle, but the war was far from finished. That night, we all stayed at Patricia's sister's house for safety. Dad called, devastated but not surprised. He'd already started divorce proceedings and promised to testify if needed. The family was shattered, but maybe that that was necessary. Maybe we needed to break completely before we could rebuild. Sarah's divorce took an interesting turn. When Kyle learned about Mom's arrest and her involvement in feeding him information, his lawyer advised him to back down. Suddenly, the aggressive demands disappeared. He agreed to mediation, reasonable custody arrangements, and a fair settlement. Without Mom pulling his strings, Kyle just wanted out. But Marcus Webb was a different problem. With Mom arrested, he went underground. The police were looking for him, but he was too smart to be found easily. We stayed vigilant, never going anywhere alone, always watching. 3 days after Mom's arrest, I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "You've made a mistake," Marcus's smooth voice said. "Your mother was protecting you from uglier truths. Now you'll have to face them alone." "Is that a threat?" I asked, recording the call. "It's a warning. Some secrets are better left buried. Your mother knew that. Do you?" He hung up before I could respond. His words chilled me. What other secrets was Mom hiding? What uglier truths? I wouldn't have to wait long to find out. Mom made bail, as expected, but with strict conditions. No contact with any of us. Surrender her passport, ankle monitor. She was facing serious charges, and her lawyer was reportedly telling her to take a plea deal. But Mom had one more card to play. The next morning, Sarah got a package delivered to her house. Inside were documents, old documents, birth certificates, medical records, legal papers. Sarah called me, hysterical. "You need to see this," she said. "I can't. I don't understand what this means." I rushed over, Claire and Patricia following. What we found in those documents changed everything we thought we knew about our family. The birth certificate was mine, but it was different from the one I'd always had. This one listed a different hospital, a different time, and the medical records. They showed that Mom had been admitted for psychiatric treatment right after my birth. Postpartum psychosis, they said. Violent delusions, attempts to harm the baby. "She tried to hurt you," Sarah whispered, reading through the hospital notes. "When you were just days old, God, she really tried to." The legal papers were even more shocking. Custody documents signed by Mom, giving temporary custody of me to Dad's mother. For 2 years. 2 years I'd lived with my grandmother while Mom got treatment, and I had no memory of it. "That's why she hates you," Patricia said softly. "It's not because you look like your father. It's because you remind her of her own breakdown, her own failure." Everything made sense now. The hatred, the favoritism, the constant rejection. I wasn't just Dad's daughter in her eyes. I was living proof of her deepest shame, her loss of control. There was a note with the documents in Mom's handwriting. "You wanted the truth. Here it is. I was sick. I got better. I came back and tried to be your mother. But every time I looked at you, I saw that weak, pathetic woman who couldn't even love her own baby. So yes, I hated you, because you were my failure made flesh. Are you happy now?" I sat there, numb, as my sisters, both of them, wrapped their arms around me. 30 years of pain, of wondering why I was never good enough. And the answer was that Mom had been broken from the start. She'd never healed, just learned to hide it. "This doesn't excuse anything," Sarah said fiercely. "Being sick doesn't give her the right to torture you for 30 years. Or to threaten Patricia and Claire," Patricia added. "Mental illness isn't a free pass for cruelty." They were right, but it still hurt. All those years of trying to earn her love, and it had been impossible from the beginning. She wasn't capable of loving me. Maybe she wasn't capable of real love at all, just possession and control. The documents would help in court, though. Mom's lawyer could argue diminished capacity, but the pattern of harassment over decades would be hard to defend. She'd made her choices, sick or not. A week later, we got word that Marcus Webb had been arrested in another state. He'd been running a similar harassment campaign for another client, and had finally slipped up. He was facing multiple charges and would likely flip on his clients for a deal. Mom's situation got worse by the day. Sarah's recovery was progressing well, and Claire was almost back to full strength. The kidney was functioning perfectly, and the sisters who'd been strangers were becoming real family. We had dinner together twice a week, sharing stories, learning about each other. Dad filed for divorce and moved in with his brother. He seemed relieved, like a weight had been lifted. "I should have left years ago," he admitted during one visit, "but I was a coward. I thought staying was protecting you girls. I was wrong." Mom's trial was set for 6 months out. Her lawyer was pushing hard for a plea deal, but Mom was fighting it. She still believed she'd done nothing wrong, that we were all traitors who destroyed her perfect life. Some delusions, it seemed, were too deep to cure. The trial date loomed closer, but Mom wasn't done fighting. 2 weeks after Marcus Webb's arrest, I got a call from my bank. Someone had tried to access my safety deposit box using forged documents. The attempt failed, but it showed Mom was getting desperate. Sarah discovered her medical records had been requested by an unknown party. When she investigated, the request traced back to a law firm Mom had hired. They were digging for anything to use against us in court. "She's trying to prove we're all mentally unstable," Sarah said, showing me the paperwork. "Look, she's requesting our therapy records, prescription histories, everything." Patricia's lawyer filed immediate injunctions, but the damage was being done. Mom was painting a picture of 3 unstable women conspiring against her. Her new legal team was aggressive, filing countersuits claiming defamation, emotional distress, and elder abuse. The elder abuse claim was particularly ridiculous. Mom was only 58 and in perfect health, but her lawyers argued that the stress of our persecution had affected her well-being. They demanded damages and a restraining order against all of us. Claire received a certified letter at Patricia's sister's house. Inside was a formal demand for repayment of her medical expenses, claiming she'd obtained the kidney through fraud and manipulation. The letter was from Mom's estate lawyer, suggesting Mom was already planning for a future where she might lose. Dad called me one evening, his voice shaking. Mom had cleaned out their joint investment accounts before the freeze went into effect. Nearly $300,000 gone. She'd also maxed out their joint credit cards buying jewelry and other easily sellable items. "My lawyer says it's asset dissipation," Dad explained. "She's hiding money for after the trial, but proving where it went is almost impossible." Sarah's ex-husband Kyle suddenly reappeared, filing new motions in their divorce. He claimed Sarah had hidden her family's criminal activities from him, making their entire marriage fraudulent. Mom's fingerprints were all over it, feeding him information through intermediaries. We held another family meeting, this time including Patricia's lawyer and the prosecutor handling Mom's case. The prosecutor, a no-nonsense woman named Detective Rodriguez, laid out the situation bluntly. "Your mother has resources and connections we're still uncovering," she said. "She's been planning for this possibility for years. Hidden accounts, backup plans, people who owe her favors." The detective showed us financial records they'd subpoenaed. Mom had been moving money for over a decade, small amounts that wouldn't trigger scrutiny. She had accounts in 3 different states, property we didn't know about, and a network of people willing to help her. "But we have the recordings," I pointed out. "Her confession, the threats, everything. Which her lawyers are already working to get thrown out," the detective replied. "They're claiming entrapment, coercion, mental incompetence due to stress. They're throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks." Patricia slammed her hand on the table. "So 30 years of harassment harassment means nothing? She just gets away with it? Not if I can help it, Detective Rodriguez said firmly, but you need to be prepared. This is going to get uglier before it gets better. She was right. The next week, Sarah went into premature labor. The stress had finally caught up with her body. I rushed to the hospital to find her in active labor at only 34 weeks. The baby's coming, she gasped between contractions. It's too early. This is mom's fault. The stress, the threats, everything. The doctors managed to slow the labor with medication, but Sarah was put on strict bed rest. Any more stress could trigger delivery, and the baby needed more time to develop. Claire and Patricia took turns staying with Sarah while I dealt with the latest crisis. My apartment building had received multiple complaints about me from concerned citizens. The complaints were obviously fabricated, but my landlord was nervous. I had 30 days to find a new place. Mom's church friends started a letter-writing campaign to the prosecutor's office, claiming Mom was a pillar of the community being persecuted by ungrateful children. They held prayer vigils for her, painting us as the villains in this story. Local news picked up the story, though they couldn't use names due to the ongoing legal proceedings. But Mom made sure her version got out there through sympathetic friends. Suddenly, we were getting recognized in public, whispered about in grocery stores. Sarah's husband's family, who had initially been supportive, started distancing themselves. His mother called Sarah saying she didn't want to be associated with a criminal family. The isolation Mom had always imposed on us was spreading like a virus. Then came the development that changed everything. Detective Rodriguez called an emergency meeting. They'd been investigating Mom's finances and found something unexpected. Your mother has been receiving large payments from an offshore account for the past 15 years, she explained, showing us bank records. Always just under the reporting threshold. Always to different accounts. We traced the source. She paused, looking at each of us. The payments are coming from your father's brother, your Uncle Robert. Dad went white. That's impossible. Robert died in a car accident 15 years ago. No, the detective said gently. He didn't. He faked his death and fled the country. He'd been embezzling from his company for years. Your mother helped him disappear in exchange for a cut of the money. The room exploded. Dad was on his feet, shaking. Sarah started hyperventilating, which terrified me given her condition. Claire and Patricia sat in stunned silence. She knew, Dad whispered. All these years she knew Robert was alive. She let me grieve my brother while she was taking his money. The detective continued. We believe she used some of this money to pay Marcus Webb and finance her harassment campaign. This changes everything. We're now looking at money laundering, fraud, and conspiracy charges on top of everything else. Mom must have gotten wind of the investigation because her behavior became increasingly erratic. She violated her bail conditions by driving past Sarah's house. When police responded, she claimed she was just checking on her pregnant daughter. The judge warned her once. The second time she showed up at the hospital where Sarah was on bed rest, she was arrested again. This time, bail was revoked. Mom would await trial from jail. Her lawyers filed emergency motions claiming she needed psychiatric evaluation, that jail was causing her mental health to deteriorate. But the judge had seen enough. Mom would stay locked up. With Mom in jail, some of the pressure eased, but her network was still active. Strange cars still drove slowly past our homes. Hang-up calls came at all hours. Someone kept signing us up for magazine subscriptions and food deliveries we didn't order. Sarah went into labor again 3 weeks before her due date. This time, they couldn't stop it. I held her hand as she brought her daughter into the world, tiny but perfect. She named her Hope, because that's what we all needed. Claire was there too, the kidney donor who'd become a sister. She cried when Sarah asked her to be Hope's godmother. Our broken family was building something new from the ashes. The trial began 2 months later. Mom entered the courtroom in shackles, looking older and smaller than I remembered, but her eyes still held that familiar hatred when they landed on me. The prosecution laid out their case methodically. The recordings of Mom's confession played for the jury. Patricia testified about the threats 30 years ago. Financial experts explained the money laundering scheme with Robert. When it was my turn to testify, Mom's lawyer tried to paint me as a jealous daughter seeking attention. But I had receipts for everything. Every threat, every incident, every moment of harassment documented and verified. Sarah testified from a wheelchair, still recovering from her emergency C-section. She broke down describing how Mom's harassment had nearly cost her daughter's life. The jury looked horrified. Claire's testimony was powerful. She spoke about growing up without a father because of Mom's threats, about finding sisters she never knew existed, about Mom trying to destroy those relationships too. Mom's defense was predictable. Mental illness, postpartum psychosis that never properly resolved, a devoted mother trying to protect her family from a husband's mistakes. Her lawyers painted her as a victim of circumstances, but the evidence was overwhelming. The financial crimes alone would have been enough, but combined with the harassment, the threats, the conspiracy with Marcus Webb, Mom had built her own prison brick by brick. The verdict came back guilty on all counts. Money laundering, extortion, criminal harassment, conspiracy to commit assault. Mom faced up to 25 years in prison. She showed no emotion as the verdict was read, just stared at me with those cold eyes. During sentencing, victims were allowed to give impact statements. Patricia went first, describing 30 years of fear and hiding. Sarah talked about the pregnancy complications and the fear for her daughter's future. Claire spoke about finding and nearly losing a family. When my turn came, I looked at the woman who'd given birth to me but never been my mother. I thought about all the words I could say, all the pain I could describe. Instead, I kept it simple. I forgive you, I said. Not because you deserve it, but because I refuse to carry your hatred anymore. I have a real family now, and we're going to be okay. Mom's face contorted with rage, but she couldn't speak. The judge sentenced her to 18 years with possibility of parole in 12. She was led away, still staring at me with poison in her eyes. Outside the courthouse, our strange little family gathered. Dad looked older, but somehow lighter. Sarah held baby Hope while Claire fussed over them both. Patricia stood with her arm around me, the woman who'd been banished but never stopped protecting us from afar. What now? Sarah asked. Now we heal, Patricia said simply. The media attention died down quickly. Mom's church friends disappeared when the full truth came out. Kyle slunk away when his source of information dried up. The harassment stopped completely with Mom behind bars, and Marcus Webb testifying against her for a reduced sentence. I found a new apartment closer to Sarah and Claire. We had weekly dinners where Hope got passed around like a tiny football. Dad joined us sometimes, slowly learning to be the father he should have been all along. Robert was eventually caught in Thailand and extradited. The money was mostly gone, but at least the truth was out. Dad grieved his brother all over again, but this time with support. Sarah's divorce was finalized with fair terms. She got the house and primary custody of Hope. Without Mom's interference, Kyle became a decent co-parent, picking up Hope for his weekends without drama. Claire's health remained stable, the kidney functioning perfectly. She went back to school to become a social worker, wanting to help other families broken by secrets. Patricia watched her daughter bloom with pride. 6 months after the trial, I was packing up the last of my things for the move when I found an old photo album. Pictures of me as a baby, before Mom's breakdown. phone. In one photo, she held me with what looked like genuine love in her eyes. I kept that photo, not as a reminder of what we'd lost, but as proof that even broken people can have moments of grace. Mom had been sick, then she'd chosen to stay bitter. I could have followed that path, but I chose differently. The doorbell rang. Sarah stood there with Hope in her carrier and Claire beside her. "Ready for lunch?" Sarah asked. I grabbed my purse and locked the door on my old life. Whatever came next, I wouldn't face it alone. We'd built something Mom never understood. A family based on choice, not blood, on love, not control. As we walked to the car, Hope gurgled happily. She'd never know the poison that had infected our family for so long. We'd broken the cycle. Mom's legacy of hatred would end with us. "Hey," Claire said suddenly. "Did anyone else notice today's date? It's your birthday. Your real birthday, not the one on that fake birth certificate." I'd forgotten completely. Sarah grinned and pulled out a small wrapped box. We didn't forget. Happy birthday to our sister who saved us all. Inside was a simple silver necklace with 3 interlocking circles. "For the 3 of us," Claire explained. "The sisters who chose each other." I put it on immediately, tears blurring my vision. 31 years old, and I finally had the family I'd always wanted. Not the one I was born into, but the one we'd fought to create. We drove toward the restaurant, Hope babbling in her car seat. My sisters arguing playfully about where to eat. Normal, beautiful chaos. The kind of life Mom had tried to steal from us but failed. I touched the necklace and smiled. We'd won. Not because Mom was in prison, but because we'd refused to let her hatred define us. We'd chosen love instead, and that made all the difference.